About a year ago, my buddy Ricardo Bustillos spoke Spanish, which he's done since his birth, and he talked about doing lessons with Sabicas 40 years ago. And today we're going to do the interview in English. And so I'm just going to turn the mic over to Ricardo and let him talk about various facets. First of all, where were you and when did you study with him?
I was in El Paso, Texas, and both Sabicas and Mario Escudero at the time were touring together. They came to El Paso to give a concert. At the time, my maestro was Manolo Parra, and I was studying at the Academias Muquira in Juarez, in Mexico. And I was performing and taking lessons and participating in the dance troupe for Antonio Triana. Antonio Triana, Carmen Amaya, and Sabicas came to the United States to tour, and they gave concerts like at the Hollywood Bowl, and it was a very famous tour. Of course, everybody knows Carmen Amaya and Sabicas. Antonio Triana was a tremendous dancer. Up into his 80s, he was still an incredible dancer. I learned a lot from him. Even though he didn't teach guitar, he taught me a lot about compás and aire and a lot of the beats and the traditional footsteps. I didn't dance, but he taught me that so I could accompany them. His son, Antonio Jr., still plays in Southern California. So Sabicas and Mario Escudero came to give a performance in El Paso. And of course, they got together for dinner at Antonio's house. And while at the theater, Sabicas asked for a student to come and play the guitar with him on stage. At the time, my maestro Manolo Parra knew Sabicas very well, and he told him that he had a student. I didn't know this, but he basically asked me to get out of the seat, out of the audience, and come to the dressing room. And I could not believe it that I was in the dressing room there where Sabicas and Mario Escudero were warming up. And I was just devastated by meeting him in person. And then Manolo told me that Sabicas wanted a student to play with him on stage. So I was intimidated, of course. This is Sabicas, But Sabicas said no. So he gave me a guitar, and I said, well, what do you want me to play? I'm a student. I really didn't know a lot, and my ability was very limited. He says, well, I want you to play a Sevillana for me. So Manolo had taught me the old traditional Sevillanas, and Sabicas says, that's fine. That's perfect. So next thing I know, I'm on stage with Sabicas. And all my friends on the audience, basically their jaw dropped when they see me walk out on stage with Sabicas to play Sevillanas. It was surreal. I couldn't believe it. Yes, and I did mess up because I was so nervous. But he enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed it. And so they were there for quite a few days. So we went to dinner at Antonio's house, and then Sabicas asked me to come up to the hotel, and he sat down and he gave me some instructions. Of course, he didn't teach me a soleraria, a siguiria, buleria. He didn't teach me melodies and tunes and palos. What he taught me were theory like how to present music. It's nice to have speed and agility and complexity, but the one thing he always said to me is when you have these abilities, the problem with a lot of people is that they want to throw everything out at the audience all at once. They want to throw their speed, their dexterity, their complexity, their everything all smashed up in a ball and just throw it at people. And what they don't realize is that people are not at the same level for the most part. So the one thing that if you listen to Sabicas very carefully, every note is an individual piece of music. he hands every single note to you, slowly and clearly, every single one. Even when he's playing a little fast, every note is very clear and concise and timed and spaced very well. So those are the things that he would talk about more than anything else, other than the fact that he would give me exercises to condition your hands, your fingers, rasgueo, the sapua, everything. He gave me some exercises to practice, and he says, you do this first, the music will follow. And of course, I don't practice like I used to, but I do notice that when I do practice, a new melody comes out, and it's clear. And because you have the ability in your hands, you're able to pull more out of it. And this is basically what he would say: is just don't just throw music out there because you're fast and you're fancy. Don't get fancy. Just play it right. You know, that's what he always say. Just play it right. In Spanish, que la toques bien. So it's not the fanciness or the complexity of things. It's just do it nice. And he meant by doing it nice, doing it concise and clear, and just handing music over. And a lot of his music, if you notice, he plays the melody, and then he plays a soft echo in the background. So he's always filling up the space. So it was very interesting, and I've kept those thoughts in mind all the time. And it was just very. I thought I was very lucky to have spent time with him, as well as Mario Scudero. Mario Scudero was also there, and I played with him. But basically, Sabicas was just a tremendous person. I was very fortunate. That's all I can say. It was just incredible experience.
Sounds great. You went to Japan in the 1980s, and tell us about what you saw flamenco over there. There was a story you told me about. You almost got to play at a restaurant, and they didn't want to let you play. Can you tell that story?
Oh, well, the thing is that the company I worked for was, of course, I was working with some Sony affiliates. And Japan is a very peculiar place in that they're very fanatical about certain things. And so people knew that I played. At the time, I played much more than I do now, but I played. And so they took me to a flamenco restaurant, Japanese flamenco restaurant. And I go, well, that's nice. You know, it's nice. But in reality, I was very surprised. And this is, what was it, like 20 years or 30 years ago, I think. It was a long time ago, and I brought you a poster from there.
Yeah.
So I was...
That's up on the wall of that door over there.
Yeah, I was really impressed at the passion they had for the flamenco. They were extremely passionate. They brought out tapas, very well-made tapas, paella. They had, of course, wine from Rioja. The food was excellent food. And the guitarists were incredible dexterity. They were very good. The singers, singing flamenco is very tricky, but they had the spirit and they had the passion, no question. The dancing was relatively good. I mean, there's a lot missing there, but overall, the passion that they had for the art was very, very impressive. And so the people I was with, they said, well, let Ricardo play. And they would not let me borrow a guitar. They just would not. And I respect that. That's fine. I respected that. They were very generous with their time and their attention. They treated us very well. I was very impressed at the passion. 30 years later, I would venture to say that most flamenco singers, dancers, and guitarists have toured Japan and Asia, because flamenco in Japan is very, very, very popular. And there's a couple of very good flamenco guitarists from Japan that are exceptionally good, and they get the flavor. They're there. So I was very impressed 30 years ago, but now, and a lot of guitarists go and stay in Japan and open up classes. The same thing with dancers. They have dance studios, and they tour Japan extensively because the demand for the music and the art is there. A little bit in China as well, but Japan is just an eccentric country that has a lot of passion, and they say that their passion rivals the passion of the flamenco gitano. You know that, and that's why they feel that they can relate. So it's interesting, but yeah, flamenco in Japan in Asia is big, but in Japan is very very big. The same thing with Thailand. The embassy for Spanish embassy in Thailand, they have a festival every now and then. They bring all these artists and they perform there in Bangkok. But it's much bigger in Japan, in Tokyo.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's an experience.
Thank you for sharing it with us.